This weekend on the original Rochester Press Box, presented by the Genesee Brew House.
I'm Sal Maiorana from the Democrat Chronicle, and I'll tell you why I think the Bills should hold off on Doug Whaley's contract extension.
I'm Duffy from the Breakroom on CMF. I'll tell you what, I'm excited to see if E.J. Manuel could be the worst Jim Kelly replacement.
And I'm Catalana. I disagree with Sal.
And I'm Bill Pucko. How about embracing HGH? Join us this weekend on the original Rochester Press Box, presented by the Genesee Brew House. The Brew House was created to capture and share with you the long history of the Genesee Brewery. But the brewery itself isn't half as interesting as the beer and the people who make it. Visit GeneseeBrewHouse.com. Welcome into the original Rochester Press Box, presented by the mighty Genesee Brew House. It is our pleasure to be on the premises for this week's show. Welcome in Pat Duffy from the Breakroom. Nice to have you back.
You're welcome, guys.
All right.
Wow.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Mike Catalana co-hosting as always. 13
Good
WHAM
to be
News. Back. And Sal Maiorana, it is our pleasure to. It's been too long, Sal. Democrat Chronicle, longtime beat writer for
Those
Buffalo
Bills get in the way of the schedule, I guess, over here.
They
so
kind of do, don't
now
they?
that they're done, I can come over.
So what was when the season ends and you've wrapped things up, was it anger, frustration, disappointment? What was your emotion as you wrap this thing up?
Bill, I have no emotion left with this team. It's pretty much status quo. No, really, it was, to me, this was a disappointing season for the Bills. The expectations were set so high by the coach right off the bat, and this team underperformed and underachieved, I think, in a lot of ways, especially on defense. So I expected, I don't know, Mike, if we had talked about it before the year, I think we both had them going to the playoffs, and they're not in the playoffs, so to me it's disappointing. I'm not going to give up hope on next year. I think if they stay the status quo, and don't fire anybody today or tomorrow, I think they could go to the playoffs next year.
More than writing an obituary, though, looking ahead, fix it. What needs to be done?
What needs to be done? I think Rex needs to go back to stop worrying about putting his stamp on the defense and looking at the guys that he has or he will acquire and just being the good coach that he is on defense. I think his ego took over a little bit this year. I think he said, that's the fourth-rated defense, but I can make it better. And I think that hurt him. He's a good football coach. He's a good defensive coach. That hurt him. And we talked about this at the beginning of the year. I actually had him 9-7, missing the playoffs. That's kind of a guess. It's like I thought they were going to be about the same, but I thought, tiebreakers and all. And here they are, 2 straight years where they sweep the Jets and sweep the Dolphins, and you still don't make the playoffs. That is very frustrating. But I think Rex needs to go back to that. There was a quote at the beginning of the year, I think it was John Clayton or somebody that said they're a 6-win quarterback and a 10-win team. I think it was almost the opposite. I'm not saying Tyrod was great, but he outperformed last year's quarterback. He was one of their better players, and they still only won 8 games. Very disappointing season.
How'd you think, Pat?
Well, as a diehard Bills fan, I'm at the point where what else can you do? They go out in the offseason, they get the best available head coach, they bring in a ton of talent, guys they took risks on that paid off, and they play a couple of great games all season that gives you just enough hope to think we're going to do this thing. What more can you do? There is nothing more you can do as a franchise to show the fans we're doing this to win football games. So, are we at curse level now? We're at curse level. There is a graveyard on the property of Ralph Wilson Stadium, and I'm convinced until that graveyard goes away, we will never win a playoff game ever again.
You're just getting the curse level now?
Well, I mean,
boy, you're patient.
But you could look back and say, okay, this guy didn't know what he was doing in the general manager's office, or the owner didn't want to spend money here. Like last year, they open up the checkbook and they bring in these guys, and everything looks great. We're just building on this awesome thing we have, and we're sitting here again.
Yeah, I would say, I think it's the one time in recent years where they had the pieces, and they didn't use the pieces, either didn't use them properly. Now, I'm not going to be Rex here and say injuries. They did have a ton of injuries, which contributed to it. But they were having problems even when they were healthy. That's the problem. So to your point, go out and get guys. They did do that. I mean, you brought in Harvin. You brought in McCoy. You brought in Incognito, who turned out to be a great signing. You already had a defense. Special teams were terrible. Defense way underperformed. And the hope going forward is you can get that fixed and that maybe the quarterback is good enough to get you to the next level.
They had injuries were a key thing. Yeah. And when you look back, they had injuries at the worst possible times, and I point to 2 games specifically. The Giants game, that team stinks. They should have beaten the Giants at home, and they had no McCoy and no Sammy Watkins that day. And then Jacksonville, I think, is a terrible team, and they didn't have Tyrod Taylor. I mean, that's 2 games right there that flipped this season, and they're in the playoffs.
If you look ahead to next season, and just quickly, with a tougher schedule, is this still a potential playoff team?
Yeah, like I said at the top, I think with one more off season now, I think Rex is going to identify some guys that are going to fit his scheme maybe a little bit better. He inherited this roster, and they tweaked a lot of it on the offensive side. They did very little on defense, and the key for Rex was the defense. So I think they're going to get some guys in here who are more adaptable to that scheme. Tyrod Taylor will be in his second year. McCoy, Watkins. I think they've got the pieces again if he can fix that defense.
This is the original Rochester Press Box presented by the Genesee Brew House. More NFL talk. We'll be back. The Hillside family of agencies works with youth and families on their own terms, helping them pursue their own goals, whether at home, work, school, or one of the Hillside campuses, offering encouragement and commitment, standing with families, helping to create a healthy future. The Buffalo Bills Quote of the Week was brought to you by the Rochester Geico Office. Give the Rochester Geico team a chance to see how much you could save on all your insurance needs. Call or stop by the office on West Henrietta Road, open Monday through Saturday. Our Geico Rochester Quote of the Week is Doug Whaley, tabloid journalist that you are. What do you think?
What is it, Shakespeare that said, "Methinks thou protest too much"? Right? Isn't that the way it comes out?
That's pretty good.
I mean, seriously. We know there was an issue there. Now, I don't think it was as bad as some people portrayed it, but there was tension during the year. There was the undercurrent, the snarky things. I mean, Rex, seriously. Deactivating E.J. Manuel for that Jets game and then coming up with the lame excuse. In my opinion, that was a shot at Doug Whaley. I think there was a lot of that stuff that went on. And if I'm Pagula, I stick them in a room together, which is, I think, what he did, and said, you guys are tied together. Make it work. Either you're both here or you're both gone. But there absolutely was a problem. Tabloid journalism. No. No. I mean, come on. Everybody knows there was some issues between the two of them. But I think they're adults, and they'll make it work.
When they start shooting the messenger, that's when you get suspicious about it.
Yeah.
This portion of the original Rochester Press Box presented by the Genesee Brew House, brought to you by the Hillside family of agencies. I wanted to talk a little Peyton Manning, HGH, not so much about Peyton Manning, but the whole idea of the HGH, what we think. And with all the injuries in the NFL, it seems to me there's some benefits to using this.
Well, listen, I'm fine making HGH okay, but then you arise other questions in the NFL, right? Are you using HGH just to help injuries? If that's the case, you're going to give it to guys with injuries. How injured do you have to be? Because if Peyton Manning's taking HGH to recover from a neck injury, and I don't know, for example, Ben Roethlisberger's taking it to become a better football player, well, now you have that same competitive disadvantage that you had if someone was taking it and somebody wasn't. So I don't think it ever becomes okay because there's no way to legitimately even the playing field. Somebody's going to be better than somebody else, and it's going to be because of HGH, whether they're hurt, whether they're not, whether they're playing, whether they're not.
Unless you just make it legal.
Yeah, or regulate it somehow. It
Yeah.
seems to me, Sal, one of the biggest problems is that by the end of the NFL season, you wind up with rosters full of junk. If you could do anything to improve that, it would really help the product, wouldn't it?
Well, I absolutely agree with that. I don't have a problem with the HGH issue right now because it's supposed to be used for recuperative procedure. So if it's going to help a guy get healthier quicker, and in the case of Peyton Manning, a very serious neck injury that was career-threatening, I don't have a problem with that. And like you said, right now at the end of the year, now these playoff teams are going in banged up. Who's Pittsburgh going to have to run the ball in their playoff game? Nobody, because everybody's hurt. I think it's really a problem in the NFL. Again, I think baseball players, baseball fans have a bigger problem with PEDs and steroids in that sport. I don't see it as an issue in football. I don't hear football fans caring about it that much. So why not? Like you said, either make it legal or regulate it, but let it come into the game. I think it'll help the players down the road.
I mean, do you think I'm missing something here, Mike?
No, I don't think so. And Sal's point about baseball is because everybody cares about the records, right? Everybody cares about the numbers, and this guy ended up beating Babe Ruth or ended up being whatever. Nobody cares about that in football. I mean, and most of us don't even know what the records or care. I don't care who had the most time. I don't care. We care about the NFL. We care about this week. We don't care about the history in that way. So, and I don't think in that way, look, it takes a rare form of guts to play this game. It is a violent game. It is a physical game. And I think these guys believe they need that help, and I don't have any problem with it.
But this could be the worst time in NFL history to try and implement something like this, because are we sure of all the side effects of HGH 30 years from now? The NFL is dealing with billion-dollar lawsuits because of concussions. They let guys play. So in the midst of that, you're going to say, oh, no, go ahead. Put this stuff in your body that we're not totally sure what happens. And then 30 years down the road, let's pray to God nobody gets sick or hurt or kill themselves.
Will Smith will make another movie.
Yes, he will. This is the original Press Box presented by the Genesee Brew House. This portion of the Press Box brought to you by the Hillside family of agencies. Like It or Not is next. As we go to break, it is time for the Turnbull Heating and Air Conditioning Trivia Question of the Week. When you're searching for a local heating and air conditioning contractor, look no further than one of the most reliable teams in the area at Turnbull Heating and Air Conditioning. Is called Turnbull at 343-2005. As we come back from the break, time for the answer to the Turnbull Heating and Air Conditioning Trivia Question of the Week. When you're searching for a local heating and air conditioning contractor, look no further than one of the most reliable teams in the area at Turnbull Heating and Air Conditioning. Just call 343-2005. See New York in a whole new way. Amtrak is offering a 15% discount for all travel inside New York State and Montreal. Visit Amtrak.com for the See New York discount. Safe, comfortable, affordable, and easy. Amtrak. Enjoy the journey. Welcome back. This is the original Rochester Press Box presented by the Genesee Brew House. This portion of the Press Box brought to you by Amtrak Trains. Enjoy the journey. Like it or not, Mike, the Professional Soccer League stepping in and replacing the Rochester Rhinos ownership.
Yeah, I think for Rochester, we need the Rhinos here, right? We need them to be a more viable franchise. There are big issues with that stadium, and I think everybody knows that, and I think that has been a problem. I don't necessarily blame Rob Clark here. I mean, he had the franchise. There were things they did not do. They came to him, and I think it got to the point where he realized he wasn't going to be able to make the money, and then they kind of bail out. Now the league comes in. I think they will find new ownership to come in for this franchise. I think it is a soccer town, but there needs to be a reset button on this, and the city and the new ownership need to get together on doing something. I mean, that stadium kind of reminds me in a different way of the way Silver Stadium used to be. Great sight lines. You say, wow, it's awesome there, but all the other stuff was a problem. Here it's not because of age, it's almost because of neglect. So they need to do some work to make that a better experience for the fans.
Now, Pat, like it or not, the Cleveland Browns are hiring, I want to get this right, a chief strategy officer.
I mean, this reeks of the Cleveland Browns, right? Like, this is Cleveland Browns. And this whole analytics thing, they're going to bring him in to take care of analytics. I'm listening to people talk all morning about this, right? It's good for the league and da-da-da-da-da. And this all comes off of the Oakland A's and Moneyball. Somebody want to answer me this question because I can't figure it out. What the heck did the Oakland A's win using Moneyball? They got a movie and a book, and all these people are getting rich off of Moneyball, right? They didn't do anything with it. They did nothing. So the Cleveland Browns are going to take this guy who worked in the Oakland organization, developing this brilliant strategy to win nothing, and what are you going to do with him? You're going to win nothing. It's not going to work. You're going to bring in a head coach that's going to buy into getting rid of key players to accumulate draft picks because coaches have more than 3 years to get the job done in the NFL. It makes no sense. It's not going to work.
But in a less literal sense, are analytics being underutilized, you think, in the NFL?
I think analytics are, well, to me, they're a dirty word, first of all. I don't buy into it at all. It's very big in baseball. Baseball is a one-on-one sport, though, and I think it's more applicable, pitcher against batter, analytically. Football, with all the team aspects of it, all the injuries that come into it, I think it's a very difficult thing to incorporate analytics into the NFL. It's a tough sell.
Sal's hitting it right on the money. The injuries is what blows the whole thing up. What was the Mike Tyson quote? Everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the face. Yeah. Well, everybody's got a plan until your left tackle gets hurt. It's almost impossible to have that replacement value guy. Are there certain things they can implement as part of it? Yeah. And the other part I would say about the Browns, they've tried a lot of other things and nothing has worked. So
they're going to hit on something someday.
At some point, but I don't know if this is going to be it.
Sal, like it or not, Anthony Lynn is getting head coaching interviews.
Yep. Rex has been talking about him really all year. As soon as he came into town, he went through his whole staff and pointed out the guys that he thinks can be future head coaches. Greg Roman is one of those guys. Haven't heard his name yet. But Anthony Lynn, look at the team, the job he did with the running backs. I mean, they led the league in rushing. Carlos Williams was a dynamic player. Anthony Lynn helped there. He played briefly in the league back in the early 90s, and he is African-American, which will help his cause in the interview process. Good coach. I don't know him real well because we don't see the assistant coaches that often, but I'll listen to Rex on this one. I think he knows what a good coach looks like, and I hope he does get a job.
And the other thing that happens in this, the guy doesn't always get the head coaching job, but a lot of times teams are impressed by him. He's then on the list maybe to be an offensive coordinator somewhere and improve his status in the league. Doesn't always work right away that year.
I got to admit, though, a week ago I wouldn't have known who Anthony Lynn was.
Yeah, it's the case with a lot of assistant coaches in the league. There's so many of them. How could you keep track?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. You could have said the same thing about Mike Tomlin when he was hired in Pittsburgh, and that worked out just fine.
It did. This portion of the original Rochester Press Box, presented by the Genesee Brew House, brought to you by Amtrak Trains. Enjoy the journey. Unfinished Business is next. The Rochester Press Box Stat of the Week, brought to you by Cariglio's Pizza, with 5 locations serving the Rochester area. Visit carigliospizza.com today.
The new caramel macchiato at Dunkin' Donuts. Let handcrafted layers of espresso, milk, and caramel-flavored swirl uplift your mood. Indulge in a hot or iced macchiato today. America runs on Dunkin'. Our Rochester Press Box Genesee Brew House Fan of the Week is Mackenzie Wright from Medina, New York. She received a $25 gift card for the Brew House and a Press Box t-shirt. Congratulations, Mackenzie, and thanks for watching the Press Box presented by the Genesee Brew House.
Welcome back, and thanks for joining us for the original Rochester Press Box, brought to you by the Genesee Brew House, and this portion of the Press Box brought to you by Dunkin' Donuts. America runs on Dunkin'. It's time for Unfinished Business. Pat, what do you got for us?
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with E.J. Manuel. It seems like a foregone conclusion. He's off the roster. And I want to know if he becomes the least successful guy to be brought in by the Bills to be the guy since Jim Kelly. Let's take a look back, guys they brought in to be the guy. Todd Collins did not work out in Buffalo. Became a respectable backup quarterback, won a couple of games, and helped in a playoff situation with the Chiefs and the Bears a couple of years ago. So, halfway decent, whatever. Then you bring in Rob Johnson. Did not go well in Buffalo. Didn't go well in Tampa Bay, but he ends up getting a Super Bowl ring out of it, so that's halfway decent, right? And then you go ahead and bring in J.P. Lossman. That was a nightmare here in Buffalo, and when he left after. What, did he back up with the Raiders and get like 3 or 4 snaps in a single game? So, in reality, then comes Ryan Fitzpatrick. He's been pretty successful. For E.J. Manuel to not be the least successful quarterback the Bills brought in to be a guy, all he has to do when he leaves Buffalo is win a game, because you out J.P. Lossman, J.P. Lossman.
Didn't J.P. win an XFL championship?
Yes, he did. With the, was it the San Diego, or the Bolts? Las Vegas somethings.
So?
I take it back. You got to win a UFL championship, EJ, and everything will be fine. But I hope the kid works out well. I feel bad for him.
I like the historical fit-in of Matt Castle having gotten into one play, having been brought in.
That's the season-starting Buffalo Bills quarterback, Matt Castle.
Yes. What do you got, Sam?
You know, there's a lot of talk this week over in Buffalo, Doug Whaley's contract status. He goes into the final year of his deal, and there was some crazy stuff going on early in the week about whether Pagula had an ultimatum to fire Whaley and Ryan if they don't make the playoffs in 2016. That was quickly refuted by a report hours later that that wasn't the case. And then Doug Whaley's contract extension became the vogue topic earlier in the week. To me, it's just like what Whaley said in the season-ending press conference on Monday regarding Tyrod Taylor. We're going to wait to see how he plays in 2016 before we commit the big money to him. As far as I'm concerned, the Bills should wait to commit the big money to Doug Whaley, too. He's been here 6 years. He'll be going into his 7th year with no playoff appearances. Why would you extend Doug Whaley right now before he's really done a whole lot to justify it? If you're not going to pay Tyrod Taylor in 2016 and wait, I think you should hold off on Doug Whaley as well.
I can ask a quick newspaper question. With the Buffalo News having 2 guys reporting conflicting stories on the same issue, is there tension in that newsroom, or how does that work?
Well, I can guarantee you that was not a good day for the Buffalo News. Vic Carucci is a longtime respected reporter who has some pretty good sources, and Tyler Dunn also a very good young reporter who is eager.
All right, well, I'm going to continue with what Sal said, and we're going to have our own little conflict here, because I don't care if they give Doug Whaley the money. I don't think it makes any difference. I think it's basically a prepaid severance package in case it doesn't work out. And I think the Pagulas have shown in their past when they were with, well, they still are, obviously, with the Sabres, they don't mind giving guys extension and then blowing them out. It's what they did with Regier. It's what they did with Nolan. And I don't have a problem with them giving them the money now, because at some point there would have been some going out the door money. They want Rex and Whaley tied together. If they form the contract that it works this way and Doug Whaley ends up with some extra money going out the door, it doesn't impact the cap, it doesn't impact you as a fan. I think there is an element of truth to them saying win next year or they're out. I think they lit that fire enough, but they can still come back and say, oh no, we didn't make it an ultimatum. I think it's almost left unsaid. I think 2016 is Rex's year to get it done. I think it's Whaley's year to get it done. I think if you're a Bills fan, obviously you want it to happen. If it doesn't happen, clean the house again. You may not want it, but I think that's what'll happen.
You're very generous with Pagula's money, by the way.
I don't think they care. And honestly, you could structure that money
I'll tell you what I care about, Mike. I disagree with you. I don't want this to be a reset situation. Give Rex Ryan the opportunity to build something. Why do you want to start over again next year?
What if they go 5-11 next year?
Give them one more year. Oh. They need 3
years,
one more
right?
Year? Don't coaches need 3 years?
I'm with Sal on this. I keep consistency. We've been rotating everybody forever. What do we got to lose? 19 years out of the playoffs. It's 1 more than 18. It's 2 more than 17.
Let me ask you, 5-11. You tell me if you want it back again for another year.
I got season tickets. I'm writing the check. I'm going no matter what happens.
See, he doesn't care about spending his money.
They're disappointing, but they're never dull. No. Thanks, guys. This portion of the original Rochester Press Box has been brought to you by Dunkin' Donuts. America runs on Dunkin'. Thank you for watching. Thank you for coming back in, Pat. Good to see you.
Love seeing you guys.
Mike, thank you as always. And Sal, for the expertise. I mean, we always love having you.
Thanks for having me.
And we'll see you next week with the original Rochester Press Box.